everyone, and welcome to Talking Over Tea. I don't know if it's been rainy for you, but here we've been getting quite a bit of rain, and that always puts us in the mood to just cozy up and read a good book. So we wanted to give you 10 recommendations that we thought would be good to read during the rainy season. So the first book that I picked is The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. It's a middle grade mystery that has a lot of interesting characters and a really interesting plot. It is about a bunch of people who live in the same apartment who are given clues to solve a riddle that will lead them to inheriting a fortune. It's set during the 70s and it has kind of a quirky cast, and it's just kind of a funny, fun, cozy book. I haven't read very many mysteries that aren't classics, so that really kind of got me excited to read this one, and I have really enjoyed it every time I've read it.
The first recommendation I have for a rainy day is the Ravenwood Saga by Morgan L. Busse. This is not my favorite series by far, but I did still enjoy it. It kind of has like a cold, mysterious fantasy setting. It just kind of has like a rainy day vibe, and while it's not my favorite characters or plot, I feel like it might be a good series to kind of get immersed into when the weather isn't very good outside.
The next book I have is another mystery called The Old Man in the Corner by Baroness Orczy. This was written in the 1900s, so it's an old book, and it is a bunch of short little mysteries. The basic premise of the book is that there is an old man who sits in a tea house, and a girl meets him, and he tells her these mysteries that have been unsolved, that he has figured out the culprit of the mystery. I thought this was a really fun book, and the actual mysteries are short enough to kind of read in one sitting, so it would be a great book to just curl up and read.
The next recommendation I have is A Wind in the Door by Madeleine, and this is actually a sequel to A Wrinkle in Time, which you would definitely read first if you hadn't already, but this one just really felt like a cozy kind of book to me. But it also has to do with nature, and it feels like a book that I would want to read when it's rainy. It's fairly short, but it kind of gives you an escape into this world, and to me it seemed like a good one to just really get lost in experiencing the world and the characters.
The next one I have is The Reluctant Godfather by Allison Tebo. This is a very short little book, but it's a really fun story, and it's a retelling of Cinderella with a big twist. The main character is the fairy godfather Bronte, and he is a very grumpy fairy godfather, and he doesn't really like looking over at the person he's supposed to be watching. So it is just a fun little book that it's very cozy, and there's lots of he just wants to bake cakes and stuff, and it's just fun, and yeah.
The next book that would be good to read on a rainy day is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is a very just dark and gloomy story that still can also be uplifting and encouraging, and still has a good message of hope and fighting for what's right. It's a bit of a longer story, so it is not one that you would read in one sitting, but I think that even just reading part of it when it's rainy outside would just really put you in the right mood for the story.
The next one I have is The Book of Pearl by So the camera cut us off, but I was saying that this book is The Book of Pearl by Timothee de Fombelle. It is a fantasy and historical fiction. It has like two worlds in it, and one is like a fantasy world with fairies, and the other is World War II France. So I don't exactly remember the whole book, but there is an orphan boy who's taken in by a couple who makes marshmallows for a living, and then there is, in the fairy world, I believe someone is like sent out into France, and somehow their worlds collide, and it's just kind of like a big chase. Even though I don't remember everything, I do remember that I really enjoyed it. It's just like a cozy, it's just like a cozy book.
My next recommendation is By Darkness Hid by Jill Williamson. I don't necessarily think that this is like cozy or necessarily fits like a rainy day, but it is a series that you can really binge. Like you want to read it, and
they're not short.
Yeah, they're not short at all. So like it's kind of one of those books that you're like, I've been waiting for the perfect time to read this huge book, and it's now when it's rainy and I just want to sit down for a long time and read. And I feel like the whole trilogy is kind of a series like that. We've talked about this book a lot, but it follows two storylines. One is a stray boy who starts to hear voices in his head and starts to be trained by a knight, and also about a girl who's disguising herself as a stray boy to run away from an engagement. It's a medieval Christian fantasy series, and I would highly recommend it, especially for a rainy day.
And then my last recommendation is Swallows and Amazons by Arthur Ransom. This is like a cozy feel-good book. It's a children's book about 4 kids in, I believe it's like the 1930s or something, who are on holiday, and they kind of go off all on their own and find this little island, and they just have all these adventures. It's kind of long, but it's just it's kind of like a comfort read. It's fun, and it's not a whole lot to it, but it feels good while you're reading it.
And lastly, I have Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I feel like it kind of goes without saying why this would fit this weather, but it's such an atmosphere. Like, you just really get engrossed in a foggy London day, and I feel like it would be the perfect time to really experience it. So that was all of the books we wanted to recommend today. Maddie's are a bit more of like the feel-good, cozy, comforting book, and mine are a bit more of the like dramatic and dark books. So you can keep that in mind when you are looking through our recommendations. But we'd love to hear what you enjoy reading when it's rainy, or what your favorite book was from this list. We want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.